Coming up today, the final goodbye. The second and final round of inter-Korean family reunions wraps up at the Mount Kumgang resort in North Korea. South Korea's rival political parties continue to row over the government's decision to reintroduce a state-authored history textbook. The main opposition says it wants to go over the current textbooks page by page with the president and the ruling party. Plus, leaders from several European countries hold emergency talks to try and find a common position on the refugee crisis. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 26th of October. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon. After seeing each other again for the first time in 65 years, it's goodbye again. The second round of reunions for war-separated Korean families came to a close just a few minutes ago, with families leaving each other to return home after the final session. For the latest, our Unification Ministry correspondent Song Ji-sun is standing by at the Inter-Korean Dialogue headquarters in Seoul. Ji-sun, so the families have shared their last words and moments together.
Right, Mark. Their time together is now over, and they're now having lunch at Mount Kumgang as we speak. And they're about to set to cross the border sometime after 3 p.m. after departing Mount Kumgang sometime after 1 p.m. Pyongyang time. Now, the 2 hours of the farewell session, which was extended by an hour as Pyongyang agreed to Seoul's proposal earlier, but the 12 hours over 3 days cannot be enough for these families separated by for decades. 88-year-old Lee Bo-soon has to leave her son, who was abducted by the North while fishing on a boat in the West Sea in 1972. She cried her heart out, and doctors had to stand by right next to the table through the whole time. Another South Korea's oldest participant, 98-year-old Lee Seok-ju, returned to the table to see his son and grandson in the North for one last time, after staying in the hotel room all day Sunday from fatigue. And the only couple in this round of reunions stayed close by each other's side for the last 2 hours, without saying too much, as words cannot describe what they feel right now, having to part again and not likely to be able to see each other again. Mark?
Yes, well, we're seeing a video of the sorrow and the great distress those families are going through at the moment. But it is a relief to the families and the relatives of those families that all the reunions were held as scheduled and that they can return home safely without too many issues. But how can we evaluate this event?
Right, Mark, it's a relief to the families and relatives here and the North as well, because there were times when the North stopped reunions in the past. But as for this reunion, there were some events that was not run as smoothly. As for the North approach, the atmosphere was much more stiff than the first round, as participating families from the North attended the event following the certain request of the families in the South. They kept looking around and wondered if their actions or words were appropriate, and was actually hesitating to receive gifts from the South family. The road to Mount Kumgang wasn't smooth either during the 2 rounds, with North Korea's border office screening laptop contents of the South Korean delegation and delaying immigration. But the 66,000 separated families in the South should not lose hope, as the Red Cross of both Koreas have vowed to rev up cooperation toward establishing a permanent channel exchanges, including letters, after this round of reunions is complete. And I will keep you updated after the family check back at Sokcho sometime this evening. Back to you in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-sun, for your report. That was our Song Ji-sun at the Inter-Korean Dialogue headquarters in Seoul, with the latest on the now completed war-separated family reunions. Now, in other news, the row continues over plans for a single state-authored middle and high school history textbook. Opposition parties are not backing away from their protests against the government's plans. The ruling Sonuru party actively touts the need to revise the current privately published textbooks. President Park Geun-hye's stance is they are ideologically biased. Meanwhile, the main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, wants an open forum with the ruling bloc and President Park to actually look into the current textbooks page by page to determine if they actually contain left-leaning content and distorted descriptions of history. President Park Geun-hye will address the National Assembly on Tuesday to explain the government's budget plan and policy goals for next year. This is going to be her third address to the National Assembly since taking office in 2013. None of her predecessors have addressed the National Assembly more than once during their term, as it is the Prime Minister who traditionally does so. It's unclear if President Park will raise the issue of reintroducing the state-issued secondary school history textbook. And staying at the National Assembly, it embarks on a month-long deliberation on next year's budget with a public hearing this afternoon. The Assembly's Special Committee on Budget and Accounts will convene 3 lawmakers from each of the ruling and main opposition parties for the hearing and assess their 2016 budget execution plans. Next year's budget is estimated to reach up to 386 trillion won. That's roughly $340 billion US. A fierce budget battle is expected between the 2 rival parties until the bill is put to a vote on November 30th. The tussle is likely to centre on funds related to a state-controlled history textbook, as we've been reporting, something that continues to rattle Korea's political scene. Now, the deepening refugee crisis in Europe has prompted leaders of member and non-member states to gather to discuss how to best handle the situation. With an unprecedented flow of people coming into Europe to flee conflict in war-torn countries, the bloc will need to find some solidarity to solve the problem. Son Jung-in has more.
Thousands of refugees continue their journey toward Western Europe by crossing into Croatia from Slovenia. This is their new route after Hungary closed its borders last month. Wrapped in blankets in a bid to protect themselves against freezing temperatures, those making the journey say it's a tough route and that there's no food or water in the camps they stop at.
It's too much cold. It's too bad. Nobody, if you want to stay, you can't stay. It's better to walk this way because it's too dangerous.
EU and Balkan leaders came together at a hastily arranged emergency summit in Brussels to seek ways to ease the plight of refugees making the grueling journey across the Balkans to reach Germany and other wealthy EU countries. However, the leaders remain split over how to best handle the crisis. Slovenia's Prime Minister warned the EU could face collapse if they don't agree on a plan soon.
The Europe is at stake now, and if we don't do all we can together to find a common solution to deliver it, then this is the beginning of the end of the EU.
The leaders agreed on the need to take stronger measures to protect refugees and to increase security along the EU's borders with the Western Balkans. Some pointed out the meeting's lack of effectiveness as Turkey, which is the starting point for most of the migrants, was absent from the talks. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, starting this week, Volvo, Ford and Fiat Chrysler automobiles will recall over 10,000 cars sold in Korea for safety-related defects. The Transport Ministry says 3,900 cars imported by Volvo Korea have problems with a fuel pump section that can cause oil leaks and fires. Ford will recall 7 models, including the Mondeo, Fusion, MKZ and Mustang for faulty door latches and problems with fuel line O-rings that may also start fires. The ministry says Fiat Chrysler will recall or repair over 3,000 cars, while a number of other automakers, including Hyundai Motor, will recall just over 70 vehicles for manufacturing glitches. Owners of the models subject to recall will be notified by mail. Now, with slowed exports and weak domestic demand, global economic institutions are lowering Korea's growth forecast for next year. According to the latest monthly consensus economic report, overseas think tanks and investment banks expect the nation's economy to grow at an average rate of 2.9% in 2016. That's down from September's 3.2% forecast. It's also lower than the Finance Ministry's 3.3% forecast and the 3.2% forecast by the central bank, the Bank of Korea. While growth projections for other key economies, including the United States and China, were downgraded this month, Korea's drop was relatively steeper, in fact. Analysts attribute the woes to Korea's struggle to regain momentum in exports and domestic consumption. North Korea and China have reportedly agreed to move forward with a long-stalled plan to create a special administrative zone in the northwestern region of the communist state. Oh Seong has this report.
After 13 years of nothing much, North Korea and China have once again agreed to start co-developing Siniju, a special administrative region in North Korea. According to a government source in Seoul, the two countries have agreed to resume plans to set up a capitalistic-style economic zone, modelled after Hong Kong and Macau. The project was initially conceived in 2002 by North Korea's former leader Kim Jong-il to experiment with a market economy and to attract foreign investment. However, the plan was later abandoned when a Chinese-born businessman appointed as the region's governor was arrested in China for tax evasion. But now the plan seems to be back on track after Lo Yunshan, a senior Chinese official, attended celebrations in Pyongyang this month, marking 70 years of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party. According to the plans, a canal will be built across the Siniju region, creating northern and southern districts with residential areas and public infrastructure on each side. 10 bridges will arch over the canal, which will be used for shipping goods and industrial water management. 6 mobile communication base stations will also be installed by the two partner countries. Total investment in Siniju is expected to reach $400 billion. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
Now, a memorial hall honouring one of Korea's most revered independence fighters, An Jung-geun, has become a new attraction in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin. The number of accumulated visitors since the opening of this memorial hall in January last year is estimated to have surpassed the 200,000 mark. The memorial hall, located at Harbin railway station, displays photos and other materials on An's life and his patriotic deeds. It also shows a spot where he killed the then Japanese Prime Minister Hirobumi Ito in October 1909 in protest of Japan's colonial designs over the Korean peninsula. The memorial, maintained by the Harbin municipal government, is open for the public to enjoy free of charge. Now in sports news, Lydia Ko continues to dominate women's golf. The 18-year-old Korea-born New Zealander has regained the #1 world ranking after making history on Sunday, winning her 10th LPGA title. Ko won the Taiwan Championship by a staggering 9 strokes, finishing her final round with a 7-under 65. The teenager's 5th LPGA Tour victory of the season sees her knock Korea's Park In-bi from the #1 spot. At just 18.5 years old, Ko is the youngest golfer, male or female, to win 10 events on any major tour. Now, more than 900 world-leading experts are gathered in Abu Dhabi for the biggest brainstorming event in the world, dubbed the Summit on the Global Agenda. The goal is to set the agenda for Davos 2016. Our Moon Gonyong takes us there.
Abu Dhabi. Signified in an array of stunning skyscrapers and endless sandy beaches, it's almost impossible to imagine that this was once nothing but wind-blown desert sand dunes. In just 30 years' time, the country has undergone a profound transformation at a pace almost unmatched by that of anywhere else in the world. And here in a city with a unique mix of Arabian charm and cosmopolitan sophistication is where the world's largest brainstorming event is taking place. When we think of the World Economic Forum, it's usually the snow-capped mountains or the resort town of Davos that come to mind. But the agenda for Davos are set here at the Summit on the Global Agenda, held roughly 3 months prior to the winter meeting. Now we're talking about nearly 1,000 experts, intellectuals, business leaders, public figures, and heads of state engaged in 3 full days of interactive workshops addressing the world's most pressing issues today. Pressing issues ranging from economic growth and social inclusion to the future of the internet and gender parity.
And the purpose of this meeting is to bring together the finest minds in the world and get them together to come up with ideas and solutions and pathways forward. And these will get discussed in Davos at our annual meeting in January. And the whole idea there is all the leaders will then take them forward and they'll become projects and initiatives that actually hopefully make a big difference.
Taken individually, these challenges illustrate the magnitude of the task the world faces. Looked at collectively, they demonstrate the complexity. Finding solutions that not only address these challenges, but do not exacerbate others will require creativity and a fresh look at the way we approach problem solving. And just how do we do that? By joining in on the debate. 문건영, Arirang News, Abu Dhabi.
Well, those are stories we have for you on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. Goodbye.